G-morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. Text me back. Hey, did you tell your parents about us? Let's skip first period together. Did you get all my texts? Is practice over yet? Where are you at? Are you with your friends? That's L-A-A-A-A-M-M-E-E-E. Capital X, lowercase o, capital X, lowercase o. I love you. JK. I hate you. JK. Are you ignoring me? We're in a huge fight right now. Is this something I did?
I can see your lights on. I'm coming over.
This isn't a What'd you dream about? Did me? I'm lonely. Holla back. Holla back. Let's try something new. Nude pics. Send me some. Text me.
Welcome back to another episode of Teen Talk New York. I'm your host, Shaquasia Brown. This is my guest for today, Mr. Urban Wall Street. This is also the producer of Teen Talk New York. And today, our topic would be the effects parents' behaviors have on their children.
Now that's a serious topic. I like that. We talked about some topics, and I think I had asked you that. What do you think about that? And you said that's something you wanted to talk about because parents' behaviors can have a lot of different effects, and I'm sure you've prepared some questions for us to discuss.
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
All right. So I believe parents' behaviors have positive and negative effects on the child depending on who the parent is.
Okay. Because
everybody's different. So I wanted to know, do you think parents have positive or negative effects on their children?
Well, like you said, I definitely believe parents, have positive effects. I know my parent did, and many other parents did, and they can have a negative effects too. The reality is children often emulate what their parents do. They want to be like their parents in many occasions, or they're going to mimic their parents' behaviors. So if you have a parent who's positive, about doing great things and wants to go to school and just promotes, uplifting, empowering themselves, that should, resonate with the child. Conversely, if you have a parent who's kind of profane, kind of apathetic, as we talked about in the last show, not really attentive, and not really a go-getter or assertive themselves, that can also have an impact because the child can be like, well, if that's what mom and dad are doing, I can kind of do the same thing. Yeah. And then it kind of creates that same cycle, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. So let's just speak about the negative effects parents have on children because that goes on mostly in society than the positive effects. I think the negative outweighs the good.
What type of behaviors do you think can affect a child in education?
Like the behavior of the parent, as in like if no support. So if I got a report card and I go home and I go, oh well, look at my report card. You go, oh yeah, okay, you did good. But you didn't even read the report card. You just, oh okay. But maybe that's because that's how you get brought up.
Right.
So you don't come to my open houses because maybe your parent didn't come to the open houses, or maybe you don't push me to do my homework because you didn't do your homework and your parent didn't have a problem with you not doing your homework,
Right. So a lot of times I hear parents say, I don't know where you get that from. Your behavior, you gotta do better in school. A lot of times parents tell their child what they want their child to do.
Yeah.
You need to do better in school. You need to do your homework. You need to, study hard so you can go to college. But if the parent didn't do those things, how impactful do you think it is for the child?
I think it will have a big effect on the child because the child doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing. It's either they have common sense and know what they should be doing, or they just not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, me, I have common sense, so I'm going to go to school and do what I'm supposed to do. Because maybe my parent not telling me to go to school, but since I'm smart enough to know you're supposed to go to school so you can be able to be successful and have a job and go to college, that it will all work out.
Okay. Now, how about this? A lot of times, parents, we often want the best for their child. So do you think if a parent doesn't come to open school night, because I want to talk about that, because that's really important that you said that when you're going to open school night, and that's a behavior that I think is definitely lacking in a lot of urban communities. We don't see the parents in the school or taking responsibility or participating
like
in the
PTA
child's
meetings
PTA
and stuff.
meeting, the child's academic career. What type of effect do you think that has on a child when the parent does not really pay that much attention or not that attentive or involved in the child's daily academics?
I think the child would feel a sense of neglect because you're not helping me. Like when you're brought up as a kid, you're taught that your parents are supposed to love you, care for you, be supportive of anything that you do, help you out. So if you don't have that from your parent, it's like, where do I go now? What am I supposed to be doing? So now you're looking for answers that you can't get because you don't have any support from your parent. So I'm pretty sure, I feel like most parents that don't really know what they're supposed to be doing are parents that's their first time having a kid. Since I think that, but also it's parents that probably have like 4 kids and they're just inexperienced because they didn't really do anything for the first child, so they didn't do nothing with the second child, third, or the fourth.
Do you witness that type of behavior frequently in your surrounding or in your environment where you live?
Yes, I actually have. I've seen kids, you could tell when a kid has been neglected because the way they come to school and they look down and they always upset. Like it's hard for kids to be able to do anything if they're in that mood. Mm-hmm. So like you already, like that's when people in the schools come in to check on you and everything, but it's like we checking on you, but we can't really do nothing because you do have a parent. Your parent is just not responding to what we're trying to do.
So let me ask you, do you think schools, when they recognize areas of deficiencies in students, like the students not coming to school or the students not really just applying themselves, and then they reach out to parents, do you think a lot of parents, again, we're only speaking from your perspective, and, and you're a teenager growing up, and we're here in Brooklyn, so you're speaking about your environment and what you see, because what you see inevitably is going to shape how you think and what you believe. Do you think when parents don't respond to the attention, or I should say the request from schools or administrators or teachers to come, that's a problem? Because a lot of times I know if teachers will reach out.
Yeah.
But some parents seem to have this like, oh, I ain't got time. Well, what's that about? Why are they calling me? Or, I don't have time for this and the third. And not understanding that their child's education it should be more important to them than the actual teacher. So do you think when parents don't get involved, what type of message do you think that sends to the child with regard to how they grow and how they evolve?
It sends a message that if you was gonna do this, you shouldn't have had a kid. Like I feel like when you have a kid, this is what goes on. Like when you have a kid and your kid goes to school, you should expect phone calls from teachers or from anybody. Like that's how you know what your child is doing. That's how you check up on your child if you're not paying any attention to your child. Because if you're not paying attention to your child, there's other people that's probably paying attention. And because they're paying attention, they're going to let you know what's going on in your kid's life. But I don't know. Like every parent doesn't, actually listen to what the teacher or whoever's saying on the phone. They're just like, oh, it's always something. Or they might assume that it's always bad. You get a phone call from school, I'm automatically think it's bad.
Right.
But no, you get good phone calls, then you get bad.
Very true, very true. So let me ask you, unfortunately in our communities, I see a lot of parents who, if they were young, maybe they had their child young, I think that definitely has a different effect if you maybe had your child at 15 or 16 as opposed to 26 or 36. There's a different degree of life lessons you've learned as opposed to you haven't. What's one of the biggest, I should say, behavior issues that you see and that you experience or you hear from your peers? It's kind of parallels a lot for everybody in the hood. Like, what's some of the biggest parental behavior issues that you're familiar with?
Let's see. One of the biggest ones is not able to. A word for this. That's like I can't support my family. Like if my child needs clothes, I might not be able to do that because I'm not bringing in that much money. I have to pay bills.
Right.
I have to go grocery shopping. I have to do this. So now your child doesn't have nothing because you have to get everything else with your money. Mm-hmm. So I think it's the income that messes up a lot of people parenting.
A lot of income. So you think the lack of so here's a behavior. When you're lacking in income, do you think that's indicative of some prior behaviors or decisions that parent made? Meaning, if I have children, I'm 25, I'm 23. Mm-hmm. I could be a mother with 22, and I have 3 kids at age 22. There's going to be behaviors that are probably going to be negative, or there's definitely going to be some income issues. Yeah. So what do you think are some contributing factors that lend to, I don't know, those poor behaviors? Because some parents, young parents, they don't get it sometimes. The most important thing in your child's life is you. The most important role model is you. The most important figure is you. And when I see parents, for example, talking to a 3-year-old, like, what the H are you doing? Or what the F is wrong with you? Mm-hmm. I mean, parents that use profanity. I'm sure you've seen it, especially in the hood, we talk to our children that are not even first grade age as if they're adults or if they're less than human. What do you think about that type of, those type of parenting?
That type of parenting, I feel like it's going to just make your child worse.
Why?
Because you're yelling at the child. They're not receiving the information because you're yelling. Mm-hmm. It's like, if somebody's yelling at me, I'm going to be upset. So I'm not going to want to listen to what you said. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to ignore it. It's going to go in one ear and out the other because you're yelling.
Now, what about, parents who don't work? There's some parents who don't work. Yeah. They, I'm not knocking anybody. They just live off the system, or they feel a sense of entitlement, whether it be Section 8, whether it be welfare, or whether it be, child support, whatever the case may be. But there's some parents who just don't work, and that's a behavior that also can have an impact on your child. What type of impact do you think a non-working parent has on their child that may live with them? And not a non-working parent because of the disability. Mm-hmm. I mean, they get up every day, they don't have a problem going to get their bag of weed or going to the store or whatever. But when it comes to working, they just feel like, the 1st and the 15th is good enough for me. What type of impact do you think that has on the child?
I think the impact is that now the child is going to grow up thinking that they don't need a job to get by in life. Mm-hmm. But they might try to get a job, but they probably won't go through with it because they haven't dealt with it before, and they haven't seen their parent go through it.
So guidance.
Yeah.
So guidance, and so would you agree that children really, and even teens, they act upon what they're conditioned to? Mm-hmm. I mean, like, if I'm conditioned to a household, parents who promote education, who show up to school, who are involved in PTA, who get involved in Little League, who get me involved in other extracurricular activities, those kids will probably represent those same type of behaviors.
Yeah.
And then there's individuals, conversely, the opposite, they probably won't be on that same path. So think about some behaviors. What's some good behaviors, in your opinion, whether you observe or not, that parents exemplify or represent that have a positive impact on their child that you've seen? I've seen this parent do these things, and I've seen the results in your child.
First off, education. Like, if your parent graduated high school, then when they graduated high school, they went to college, and they graduated college, whatever. I think that's a big impact on the child, because now the child see that their mother or their father did that, so maybe I could do it too. Maybe I could get some tips from my parents so I could succeed just like they did.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, and Shaquaza has some other topics and some other questions or agendas she wants to address, so stay with us. Teen Talk. We'll be right back.
Listen, I know you're upset, but it was just one date. And dating's like the stock market. There's ups and downs and ups. So always buy low.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to put up with you.
Welcome back to Teen Talk New York. We have been talking about the effects parents' behaviors have had on children.
Indeed. So one of the biggest issues in our communities is definitely neglect, and I know you have a few questions here. So let's go through your list of questions, and we'll kind of play off of those.
Okay, so I feel like parents often neglect their kids, but do you think that neglection should even be a choice for a parent?
No, neglection should definitely not be a choice. The reality is, I understand that there are a lot of different circumstances, and it's tough. Being a parent, I'm sure it's not easy to be a parent. I'm a parent myself, and it's definitely a challenging job. But it's one, like you said, that you had that child. It's one that you have to accept and stand accountable for. Neglect is no reason, because at the end of the day, most children just want time. They just want love. A lot of the attention, and attention is free. It's it costs you absolutely nothing to be attentive to your child. It costs you nothing to, go see them playing basketball in the park. Or it costs you nothing just to sit outside with them while they're running around. Whatever the case may be, a lot of children just want to get that attention. So it should never be a choice. It's definitely not a choice. And why some parents do choose is very unfortunate. What do you think?
I don't think neglection should be a choice, because it's like you should just already know, like, when my kid comes, like, if you're about to have a baby, my kid comes, my kid's going to be doing this, my kid's going to be doing that. You should always want to push your child to do better. Do you think that why do you think parents neglect their kids? What situations?
Some could be the fact that maybe growing up they didn't have that particular parent.
Yeah.
I know if maybe males grow up without a dad, they may not be as attentive to their children because they're not conditioned. Maybe some individuals just maybe don't like their kids, or they don't like certain behaviors of their kids, and they're not equipped, or they're not mature enough to know how to handle that.
Yeah.
And so that causes them to neglect the child. Not that maybe that they don't love the child, but it's like I really just don't know what to do. And I know that sounds kind of contrite to say, what do you mean you don't know what to do? You should know what to do. And while we say that, there are some people, unfortunately, who just may not be prepared or equipped to really be a parent. Like, being a parent is probably the most challenging and important job you'll ever have. And in reality, just like everybody's not good for every job, everybody may not be good to be a parent.
Yeah. So, are most parents that have neglected kids, is it because they are new to being a parent?
I think it could be that they could be new to being a parent. A lot of times you have, for example, teen moms, young teen moms.
Yeah.
So if you're 15, 16, you have a baby, you're young, you're a child yourself. You haven't even started living. So while your friends are going to parties or going skating or just hanging out, you naturally want to do the same thing because that's where you are at that time in your life from an age perspective. But when you have a child, that's a responsibility. So maturity comes in. So that neglect comes with, or I should say, that neglect comes with a lack of maturity because you don't realize that, unfortunately, my life has changed. I can't be out at the park, or I can't sleep online for sneakers. I can't just be focusing on parties. I have to be home, learning how to be a parent, how to prepare this child's life so that maybe they don't make the same mistakes that I have. Or it could be a parent that maybe has so many children, right, that they're just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And if you're the youngest, like you might be the seventh or eighth child in the family. And that parent could be older, tired, and it's easy to neglect that too because you just don't have the same energy.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I feel the same way. I definitely agree because if you're in a big family, it's more than likely that someone in that family is not getting enough attention because of everything that's going on. Mm-hmm. It's a lot. But do you feel like parents realize when they're neglecting their kids? Because some parents might not realize it. Mm-hmm. Somebody might tell them, and they're like, no, I don't think I'm neglecting my kid.
I think it could be both ways. A lot of times parents probably don't realize it because, the denial. You want to deny. You want to believe that I'm giving my child, listen, I feed them. They have some place to live. They have clothes. So How am I neglecting them? They may not see the intangible things. Like
Yeah.
just sitting, like I said, sitting out in the park, walking with your child, talking with your child, maybe just watching TV with the child, reading a book, whatever, just communicating. They may not see those things, like nobody did that with me.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that when you don't do what wasn't done for you, then you might perpetuate the same type of mentality
Yeah.
that you may unfortunately have. But I would like to think that parents don't know. Now, when parents are told you're kind of performing that neglect and they don't listen, again, that's just having to accept themselves. Are you happy with yourself in your life? A lot of times, if people are not happy where they are in their life, it's really hard for them to focus on anything else, even when it might be their child. So it's a lot of personal accountability, I think, that comes into play. But it is unfortunate to be a parent and neglect your child. It's definitely nothing that's going to be beneficial to that child.
So what steps can parents take to not neglect their child? Or how can they better themselves for their child so their child could actually follow their steps?
Most definitely, just first and foremost, try to represent yourself with the highest standards of integrity, right, and dignity. Talk to other parents.
Yeah.
You know, the reality is you're not going through it alone. You know, there's no one really. There's no perfect parent.
Yeah,
There's
because
no
it could be a
book on
parent that's
parenting.
in the same situation.
So again, some people adapt to certain situations better than others. Some people seem like they were just made to be parents. They love to be a parent. Where some people may like being a parent, but they might like their career more.
Yeah.
You know, so they're trying to figure out, how do I balance my career and being a parent? If you have a parent where they can stay at home with their parent, they have the luxury of being able to stay at home with their child. Mm-hmm. They can pick their child up from school. They can drop them off. They can make lunch. I think all those things, all those dynamics, make the difference. But it's really that thing about, just talking to other parents, knowing that, there is not always a right or wrong. It's about experience. Being involved in your child's life, even things that you don't think are important, can be very, very important to your child. And most importantly, that no matter what, even when your child may listen to his friends or his peers, the greatest influence in your child's life is you. In my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't you listen to me? Listen to everybody else. But I think if you set the stage and the tone for what you want your child to listen to and how you want them to be, though they may be influenced by other individuals, I think ultimately, your influence would have the greatest impact. Now, do you think there are certain behaviors of parents that cause rifts or divides within the family, and it's hard and it breaks bonds?
When you put your spouse over your child.
Putting your spouse over your child?
Yeah.
Now, you mean spouse like your husband, or you mean partner like a boyfriend or girlfriend?
Like a boyfriend or girlfriend.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think that causes? How do you think that makes the child feel?
Like, it would make me feel like you left me for somebody else. I feel like it shows me that you don't care about my being or my presence, because now that you found someone new, it's like you just leave me alone.
Definitely. That's really serious. Listen, behaviors. A lot of the things that we do, we're sometimes learning ourselves. If you're a young parent, the road of being a parent is very challenging. And if you're an older parent, it can't be the same way. But know that the things that you do, how you speak to your child, how you speak around your child, and how you conduct yourself, those things will affect, your child and what they think. So before we get out of here, Shapraise, what you want to say before you take us out of here?
I want to say, don't give up to all the kids that are actually being neglected. Just keep pushing and strive for better. And that's it.
So until next time.
See you later.
See you soon.